Now, you just went to Africa with your family for the second time. When you go to places in different countries like Africa, does that change your way of thinking for writing? Do you create new ideas from watching other people and watching how they live and seeing how their culture, how they live through their cultures?
I think everything that I experience in my life affects my writing. It can't help but affect it. Writing is, when you write something, it's all about how you feel about it or how you make your characters feel about it. And it's sort of a culmination of all your life experiences that gets put together to mold and shape those characters and what you have them do and not have them do. That any experience that I have, especially if it's something like that, soul-stirring, when you go to another country and see such a difference than what we have here, it can't help but influence my writing in some way.
If you could choose one author, who would you choose to be the one who's inspired you the most, and why?
It's interesting. I tend to get that question a lot, and I cannot really come up with one particular author. And it's not that I want to avoid your question, but the fact is there are so many good authors out there. And in all the books I've read, I've learned something, and they've inspired me in some form or another, that I don't really have a favorite per se. I have a handful of favorites, but there isn't one particular one that stands out and says, that book gave me the most that all the other books didn't give me.
Now, Alandra, you say that you've never yet run into writer's block. So what's been the hardest part about putting this book together?
First of all, I would say the hardest part was actually putting my thoughts down on paper. I was very reluctant of doing that. I created stories for myself. I didn't want to share them with anyone else. They were my stories, and I wanted to have them only for me. I started then when I had children to sometimes tell my children stories, but they were not really the stories that I kept close to my heart. So actually having to put those stories down on paper, that was the hardest for me. Then actually thinking seriously about going into a writing career, in all honesty, I made so many mistakes at the beginning. It's funny
like
because...
What kind of mistakes?
It was funny because I have to say this because that was one of the things that I had first told my editor, Pat. I said, you know, I've made all the mistakes you could possibly make, you know, as a first-time writer. And he laughed and he said, you know, well, back in his time, he did the same thing. And I guess there's a lot of writers that do that.
Well, okay, so what kind of mistakes would first-time writers
well,
make?
I went into it, first of all, not taking it seriously enough. It's always been a hobby for me, and I should have treated it like a profession, not a hobby, for one. I thought, okay, I'll scribble down in rough form a few chapters, hand them in, and, you know, they'll accept them based on that kind of thing. Well, wow, was that a mistake? You know what I mean? Just basically not taking it professionally enough. I needed to take my writing very seriously and put everything into it and give it my 100%. And I didn't do that. And then the problem with not doing that, I didn't do enough research. I didn't know what needs to be done, what shouldn't be done, how should this be done, you know, what kind of format, I mean, every little detail. I made every mistake you could possibly make. So if nothing else, these last 15 years have been an incredible learning experience for me.